both juries for Paul and Ruben Flores are back in the court in the Kristin Smart murder trial. The father and son duo are both charged in connection to the disappearance of the college freshman back in 1996 after Paul Flores was last seen leaving a party with Smart. They are currently being tried at the same time, but with two different jurors who rotate in and out of the courtroom depending on the witness. Joining me now with the latest in Monterey County, California, Court TV crime and justice reporter Matt Johnson. Matt, always great to see you this Friday afternoon. We know the jury is hearing more about inconsistent stories by Paul Flores. Tell us more about that.
Judge Ashley, good afternoon. That's right. These two juries back together today. And wow, we are wrapping up week 4 of testimony in this lengthy trial, 26 years in the making, according to the Smart family. And it was some big key moments and testimony and evidence that was presented yesterday to Paul's jury, including this. It was an interview, a video interview with Chief Investigator William Hanley and Paul Flores back in 1996. They were talking again about the black eye. That's that video clip right there. Hanley asked, the last time you told us about the black eye, you said you got it playing basketball. Now you're saying that you were uninstalling your radio while working on your truck. Paul replies, it didn't really matter. Hanley says, why lie? Paul says, it doesn't matter, little details. Why does it matter who I was with? Didn't think it would matter. It wasn't important, though. Again, Judge Ashley, these two juries, and Paul's jury in particular, hearing more stories, different accounts of what happened that weekend and why he ended up with that black eye.
And are the inconsistencies going to be enough for this jury to find beyond a reasonable doubt that he murdered Kristin Smart? I know that's the big question in this case, but I have another big question for you, Matt, because I've heard about a polygraph test. Did Paul Flores take a polygraph test?
Isn't that a headline? Yes, he was asked about a polygraph test, never took it. So the prosecutors were talking about that today, and again, the white lies and the inconsistencies. Did he kiss Smart? Did he not? Did he walk her to the dorms? Did they go their separate ways? So the investigator right here in 1996 just asked him, why don't you take a polygraph test? Paul says, I have to ask my parents. Investigators, they doubled down on these lies. And in this video clip, they also ask him, about whether or not he was aggressive with other girls. Because again, there is going to be testimony later on, we suspect, according to opening statements with the prosecutors. They're going to bring up the testimony and the cases, the alleged cases of rape out of LA County, about 6 hours from here.
This case, I know it was a cold case for years. It happened years ago, but part of what we know is forensic science. Forensic evidence can tell us a lot, Matt. So I know that the investigator who processed the dorm room is back on the stand, and by that I mean the defendant's dorm room. What has he said to the jury?
Yeah, he's recalling back to 1996 when he had a lot of questions for Mr. Flores back then with all of his consistencies that they were kind of piecing together with their puzzle pieces. And then he started to get some information, and they got the search warrant, and they processed that dorm room. These are the items that they collected from that dorm room back in 1996 that both juries are hearing about today, including hair, some fibers, fingerprints, a mattress and a mattress cover. And Judge Ashley, as you know, we know that this jury will hear about the fact that there was blood DNA on that mattress, but it was never determined whether or not it could be Kristin's or if she was ruled out. So that's something that the defense will zone in on.
Absolutely. Could be enough for reasonable doubt. At the end of the day, we just don't know what this jury's going to do. Matt Johnson, live in California, thank you so much for joining us this Friday afternoon. Now I'd like to welcome in studio for the hour trial attorney Erica Wilson, and still with me, trial attorney Holly Davis. Erica, nice to see you again today. This case, a cold case, forensic evidence is very different over a period of 26 years. Is it a big deal to you that they found blood in the defendant's room, but yet they couldn't say it is or is not blood belonging to Kristin Smart?
And I'm not surprised. Again, time is on the defendant's side. The longer things go, the more things become stale. And so that's going to be an issue, certainly, for the state. But you can't undo the fact that they did find some blood there. So that's going to have to be something that the defense is going to have to find a plausible explanation for.
Right, absolutely. And Holly, one of the things we've talked about before, but I haven't had an opportunity to speak to you about this, is two juries. A little unusual. We know that Paul and his father Reuben are not accused of the same crime. Reuben helped cover it up. Paul committed the murder. Two juries moving in and out of the courtroom depending on the evidence being presented. Is that unusual in your experience? And do you think it's a problem or not at all?
It's highly unusual and it's very clever. This is a solution that was posed likely to address the arguments about judicial efficiency. Most of the time we have to have two separate trials that are very, very expensive, and the witnesses have to recount their stories, or some of them can't travel to the trial. So this solution is a very clever one, and that you're using the same witnesses and you're using the same court time, but you're switching the juries in and out of it. I think it's a great rebuttal to an argument that the trial would take too long otherwise if you kind of spaced them both out. So I think it's about swift justice, and I think it's about time, since it's been about 26 years since this victim went missing.
All right, in a perfect world, Erica, 26 years ago, they conducted the investigation. They spoke with Paul. They spoke with the father. They did an investigation. So I think it's hard for viewers to understand, why did it take 26 years to get here? How in the world were they not arrested before now? How do you respond to that?
You know, these things happen all the time, and essentially sometimes the state, they need time to kind of build a case. 26 years is a very long time to build it, but you never know. There could have been a lack of evidence during the initial investigation. It could have ended up on a new detective's desk in the cold case division, and it had a new set of eyes that came to it, and they saw things that the other detectives obviously did not see. And that's typically what happens when you have such a long, almost 3 decades between the time that it happened and the time it actually goes to prosecution.
And it is frustrating, but you're right, it's not always unusual. And you know, the genetic testing is huge in a lot of the trials that we cover, in terms of that's providing answers and connections to the defendants who are then sometimes convicted of the crime. But let's talk about this piece, and that is Kristin Smart's body has never been found. It's a circumstantial case. Now, a body doesn't mean you can't have a conviction, but in this particular case, Holly, do you think without Kristin's body there's going to be a conviction of Paul for the murder of Kristin?
I think it's going to be an uphill battle for the prosecution, but I think ultimately there will be, and I'll just call it. I might be wrong, but I do feel like there will be a conviction. I think that 26 years passing and a blood stain on a mattress is very, very difficult for the prosecution. But I think that the evidence about rape over time by this defendant is going to be very strong, and that is going to, in my opinion, tip the scales in favor of the prosecution and a guilty verdict. I think the reason why it's taken so long for this case to come to trial is that they were waiting around to find evidence about what the state is calling the burial ground beneath the deck. And I think that only occurred through technology that was recently developed. So my guess that it's taken so long is that they've really wanted to bring to light this maybe newer information about where they believe that this young college girl was buried in the backyard of the father of the defendant.
And hence his charges. That's exactly what the state is saying. Erica, what do you think? What would you predict in this case? Conviction or not?
I don't see a conviction.
Really?
I have to disagree. I don't think that they have a lot. It does hurt them that they do not have a body. But again, a lot of the evidence that they have is stale. Witnesses, their memories are not as fresh as they were around about the time that this incident occurred. And I think the state is going to have, a hard time, linking the two. And especially if they have good defense attorneys, they're gonna emphasize, hey, they spent too much time on these people. They haven't really vetted out other options. And again, it made national news. They want to blame somebody. And so I'd be surprised if they did get a conviction on this.
But what's interesting, given there are two juries making two separate decisions, theoretically you can have a not guilty, Paul didn't murder her, but the father's guilty of covering up the murder. That's weird.
It's weird, but as she stated earlier, it is very strategic because you don't want the left hand knowing what the right hand is doing. You don't want jurors in Group A to know or hear any of the evidence that is not applicable to that particular defendant, and so you could end up with conflicting verdicts.
Yep, absolutely. But you're right. That's the way our system is designed because you don't want to be affected by somebody else's jury trial.